Our three-man Wolfpack is a tandem this week. Darren Millard along with Kevin Woodley, In Goal Radio, the podcast. David Hutchison, co-founder of In Goal Magazine, is on assignment. It's a great time to be on assignment right now with all the equipment unveiling that's taking place as we go into the spring and the summer. Woody, we have got a lot going on today. Our feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena is with Éric Fichaud. Our gear segment is the Bauer Hyperlite gloves. And we also have a bit of a conversation that we want to get into regarding the trade deadline that is fast approaching as the schedule around the NHL hits a feverish pitch in April. It is jammed.
Yeah, and it's evolving quickly, as I found out last night here in Vancouver with the cancellation of the Canucks and the Calgary Flames. One of those moments where I was listening to another podcast on my way into the rink and thought maybe I should turn on the radio, and glad I did, because the first thing I heard was, hey, by the way, game's off. So I saved myself another 45 minutes on my hour-long commute, busted a U-turn, came back home and started prepping for the In Goal Radio podcast. It is an exciting time. It is fresh gear season. Hutch is out there busy right now shooting photos, doing some on-ice testing procedures with our new CCM eFlex 5 set. We're in the hockey shop with Cam this week, talking about the new Bauer Hyperlite gloves. And speaking of fresh gear in the hockey shop, it's where you need to be right now if you want to get your fresh gear the fastest. You've seen the customizers launch, CCM eFlex 5, Bauer Hyperlite. We're a little over a week away from the launch of the true customizer and the ability to order that gear. Well, once you've played on the computer and created your beautiful design, that dream set, it's time to order it. You can order eFlex 5 now. You can order Bauer Hyperlite now. And what better place to order it than at the hockey shop, thehockeyshop.com, through Cam. We walked through over the past couple of segments, several of the special features on each line, but there are other custom tweaks you can make. Cam and his staff have it all dialed in. They know what you need in your game. They know what options are going to fit and feel what way when you hit the ice to make sure that you order equipment that works for your style. It's why we shop at the hockey shop and go to the hockey shop, or Darren goes to the hockeyshop.com for his needs. And it's why you should too. So excited to look at the latest and greatest. And for the rest of you, I suggest you either visit them in person or check them out online too to see what's up and what's fresh. They've got great reviews up right now already, overviews of both lines, as well as a lot of the new eFlex stuff that's coming out at retail, the full eFlex 5 line on April 23rd. So it is an exciting time of year. And we may miss Hutch right now, but we'll have him for the feature interview with Éric Fichaud.
And if you have any questions when you're on the hockeyshop.com, just give them a call and bounce ideas off them or bounce questions off them. Even if it's just the smallest query, they'll be very happy because they're goaltenders too. They love talking shop when it comes to stuff happening in the crease. And yeah, Hutch does stop by with the feature interview with Éric Fichaud, who played 10 years pro and was a high draft pick, first round draft choice of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and is now a TV analyst. And he's got some great opinions, great comments about where this game has been and where it is going. But out of the gate, Fichaud, a man that he was traded before he even played a game in the National Hockey League. And here we are inching up on the National Hockey League trade deadline. Hearing the same names bounced around over and over, that Colorado needs to fill a vacancy, that a team like Edmonton may take a chance and stock up and provide a little bit of insurance. And it's Dubnyk, it's Reimer, it's Jonathan Bernier, although there's some questions about health and whether he could step right in. If you could pick one name, who would be the goaltender that you could plop in there for a team that needs some help right now?
Well, the name that I find I'm not hearing very, very much, and maybe it's because his team isn't willing to trade him, because now that he's back and healthy, they've seen how important he is after snapping an 18-game winless streak, is Linus Ullmark with the Buffalo Sabres. Like it's almost like people have forgotten he's a pending UFA. Maybe there is an intention to re-sign there. Maybe the Sabres don't want to let him go, and I think that would be wise. Because when I look at some of the numbers on Clearsight Analytics, like over the past couple of seasons, when healthy, and that is a question mark because a big part of being a number one goaltender is being eligible for selection and being able to go out there and play. And that's been a trouble the past couple of years. But when healthy, he has outperformed that defensive environment by a pretty considerable margin between sort of, 1.3% and up on the save percentage scale. So like those are numbers like when I looked at Cal Peterson going into this season and we talked about predicting guys who were going to have breakouts, and Cal was one of them, and he's sort of lived up to it. Because the reason I picked him is because he had similar numbers to Ullmark over the past couple of seasons and was trending in the right direction. And when you consider the environment that Linus has been behind in Buffalo, like that's the name that I would probably be looking at in terms of the most upside. And maybe if it's not at a trade deadline, it would be as an option in free agency this summer. Should he not stick with the Sabres? I just feel like there's, statistically, there's definitely something there. And obviously we've had a chance to have him on the Ingo Radio podcast. I like the way he thinks the game. And like I said, the only question mark I had was the ability to stay healthy. But when he's been really good for them. And yet I just don't hear his name as often as I feel we maybe should.
You mentioned if the long-term play is to play in Buffalo, I wonder why he hasn't signed yet, or they haven't, and maybe snapping the streak and playing as well as he has since coming back and settling things down. Maybe that earns him even a few more dollars. But if he hasn't signed yet, I can't imagine that Buffalo would hang on to an asset where they are in their program.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it's tough situation there, right? For everyone. Yeah. Losing wears on everyone, and it's, frankly, it just feels like the changes need to be so sweeping, or at least it feels like that way from the outside, that you kind of really don't know what's going on there, to be honest, Aaron. And frankly, probably don't, if I'm honest, don't pay enough attention to sort of some of the things going. It's kind of easy to ignore them right now outside of that streak. But like I said, when I look at his numbers, I just feel like there's a number one goaltender there. And when he's healthy, he's kind of played at that level. And as we hear some of the names, some of the familiar names bounced around, names we've heard in the past, I don't hear his enough. And I think that his level of play over the past couple seasons would warrant a little more consideration.
I wonder where the dollars and the term would come into with Linus Ullmark. And I ask that because Thatcher Demko news coming out of the Lower Mainland with the 5-year, $25 million contract that, as of recording right now, is not official with the National Hockey League. It hasn't been announced by the Canucks, but you were first on it to pick up in the tweet by Francisco Aquilini and the ownership group with the Vancouver Canucks. Is that where the Thatcher Demko extension was thought to slot in?
I got to be honest with you. I'm a little surprised at the term and the dollar. I had him, honestly, I kind of pegged him sort of in that Tristan Jarry, in between Tristan Jarry and Jordan Binnington, sort of coming off a cup, the 2-year extension he took there. Maybe you think about Mackenzie Blackwood, although his was just his second contract and this is Demko's third, and Blackwood signed a 3-year deal for 2.8. I kind of thought we were looking at Jarry plus numbers, so maybe around $4 million on a 3-year deal, which would be 1 year of unrestricted free agency. And obviously the club likes what they see in Thatcher Demko, and what's not to like? He's like second in the NHL in goals saved as we record this right now, behind only Marc-Andre Fleury, and actually pulled slightly ahead of Andrei Vasilevsky recently. So, he's having a hell of a season, his first run as a number one goaltender, and they decided to buy 3 unrestricted free agency years, and that costs a little more. And so, they pay a little more per season, which creates it only adds to a cap crunch next year. They have to sign Pettersson and Hughes, but I kind of look at this like it's got the potential to be a massive win for the team. Like if Demko continues, and I've heard a lot of people say, oh, he's still getting better, he's still improving. Like, I don't know that you're getting better than second, top 5 in the NHL. Like, I think if he performs at this level the rest of the contract, you consider that a win, and you're probably getting value in years 3 through 5 on this. And so that's the upside for the Vancouver Canucks. Now, the downside is it's a small sample. And we've seen other goalies ride ups and downs. And part B to that is like they still haven't re-signed their goaltending coach in Ian Clark. And
that's where I was going to go next.
That's
Does this make it more likely that Ian Clark is re-upped when you put more a term into Thatcher Demko, who has been groomed under Ian Clark?
It kind of makes sense, no? Right? Like buying a $25 million car and then you cheap out on the mechanic who's going to tune it, right? Like there's clearly, and listen, like Demko is a high skill, high talent, high character. We've had him on the podcast before, and just one of those guys that leaves no stone unturned. And so he's going to figure things out even if the voice changes in terms of goaltending coach. But they've had so much success together. Plus, we've sort of seen this with other guys that were, you could argue maybe Jacob Markstrom this year, as I think there's an injury there probably that's affected his play because he was gangbusters out of the gate, missed some time, hasn't been the same, in the past month since coming back. But I just don't understand why you would break up the band over a small ticket when you're investing such a big ticket in your goaltender. And yet those are still all the indications of what's going to happen here. So it's not like Demko's going to fall apart. It's not like he can't develop rapport with another goalie coach. I just don't know why you would change that mix. And yet all indications are that that's what they're going to do. And, it's strange times. Obviously budgets are tight, but to spend that much money on the goaltender, to make that kind of investment in the goaltender and not to sort of invest in the person that's helped him take this step over the past year leaves me scratching my head. And yet all indications continue to be that that's what's going to happen.
It's a tough time if you're looking for your game, and your game can vanish when you're playing every second day or 3 out of 4 days on a regular basis, the way the April schedule is, unless you're in one of those COVID pauses. Darren Millard along with Kevin Woodley, In Goal Radio, the podcast presented by Source for Sports Surrey, the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com. Great people over there. They know their stuff. Lean on them. So is this going to be a month where backup goalies are going to earn every cent because they're going to be playing behind some tired, fatigued teams? And we've seen some games get out of hand, and it's just going to be it's not a goalie rotation. It's going to be goalie survival in the month of April and May.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of these schedules and as the back-to-backs pick up, and it's not even just the back-to-backs, it's that they create, 3 and 4s and 4 and 6 and not as much travel, so there's not as much wear and tear there, but you're really going to have to manage rest as much as you're managing the games. Tough to sort of find the time to spend extra time with your goalie coach amid all this, and especially if you're playing all the time, if you don't have a guy that you can go to give you a day off and give you a rest and give you a break, it's going to be a lot of stress, a lot of pressure on the goaltenders and nights. I think you pointed out, Darren, on Twitter, or you called it, on your show down there like a week ago, like we're into blowout season here. Like if a team doesn't have its A game and they get behind big early, like it's human nature is going to be
down.
Yeah. And we've seen that. We've seen some lopsided scores. And it's funny. It's kind of reflective in a sort of small way of what I've heard from goalie coaches around the league over the past couple of years. You just can't survive anymore without your A game. Like it used to be as a goalie, a number one goalie back when they were playing, like they would get through a 60 start season, nights where they just didn't have it, but they battled or they relied on technique and they managed to survive. So many goalie coaches and goalies tell me now, like if you don't have your A game, your B game means you're giving up 5 because there's just no margin for error. So you add that into playing behind a tired team, and nights like that, it could get away from you in a hurry. Look at Montreal and Edmonton just this week, right? Like Edmonton had its schedule all kinds of disrupted, and as a result, they end up sitting in Montreal for 4 days. They go to Toronto, play twice. They come out of Toronto and go back to Montreal for them a back-to-back. Montreal's coming off a week off, and it was no contest. Like Carey Price had probably, well, not statistically at least, the easiest shutout of his career, 17 shots. Like Edmonton had nothing in that game. And I think you're going to see a lot of sort of what I guess I would call scheduled losses. And for the goaltenders that are in those games, like it's one thing to have a scheduled loss. We could end up seeing a scheduled blowout, and it's how do you sort of survive them and not allow your confidence to disintegrate behind those types of performances.
Let's keep track of how many teams do go to that number one guy, complete day off, dress your second and your taxi squad goaltender. It may become even more prominent than the dabble that we've seen. And I think that we've watched it a little bit more than I expected already. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 6 weeks or so going through it. We have a handle on things, but we're going to deal with the gloves and the Bauer Hyperlite mitts on our gear segment presented by the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com. Cam and Woody spending some time. We did the pads last week dealing with the benefits, the changes, and the advancements in the Bauer Hyperlite gloves.
Welcome back to the Hockey Shop Source for Sports, where if Cam hits me with that blocker, we're about to have a good old-fashioned Donnybrook. Clearly, he's a little excited about the launch of the Bauer Hyperlite. Last week, we told you about the pads and some of the new features on the new Bauer Hyperlite pads. We teased you a little bit about the gloves. Today, we're going to walk through those gloves, walk through the blocker, because trust me, when it comes to the Bauer series, a blocker is not just a blocker. Cam, I'm going to let you get started. Just because I don't want you to actually hit me. Some of the new features. Let's start with the glove. 590 break, but there are some changes. Or what we think of as a 590 break.
You know what? I was so excited to talk about the block, but I guess we'll talk about the glove first.
My show, my show, my show. Talk about the glove.
60-degree break. Got a lot like that CCM 590. You're bringing your thumb to your index finger, style of closure. Very, very good closure out of the box, as they proved with their 2X trapper and their ultrasonic. They improved on both of that. What you're going to see in terms of a bit of a redesign is the actual palm itself in terms of how it breaks. This is aiding to improve the closure of the glove over an extended period of time. They're still featuring their catch-light material, which aids in that overall additional closure out of the box feel. You're still getting their pour-on protection in terms of the palm. Both the gloves we are holding are their game-ready protection. So it does have that felt layer and then that pour-on underneath. Overall, one of the bigger features that you're going to see, stock double T as opposed to the single T that you found in the 2X. Strapping on the backhand. We can zoom in and we can show a little bit more of this. Basis of what it's going to mean, though, for you is that you can get that tighter fit without affecting the closure of the glove. This neoprene backhand strap pulling onto the Velcro really gives that connected tight fit, really helping to wrap your hand all the way around the break of the glove. So excellent control feel, great feel out of the box, great closure. That's pretty awesome.
Okay, and they did change slightly in terms of the angle coming off the thumb. So again, to help create that deeper pocket, retain more pucks, a feel that, I think I mentioned it in last week's the tees when we were going over the pads. Those are the changes that sort of got a guy like Cam Talbot into their glove. Now, onto the blocker, because again, a blocker is not just a blocker. Walk us through some of the keys to the new Hyperlite blocker. I think the first thing is when you put your hand in it, and we talked about this with the ultrasonic line, less is more in goaltending quite often. Less is certainly more when it comes to less material in the blocker palm, creates a better feel, something they sort of took from their player line. With the ultrasonic last year, they have carried it over here, and it really just, there's no sort of wrinkled material. It's just a great feel.
Less bunching. And, one of the things is, how do you improve on what was arguably one of the best blockers already out there on the market with the 2X? You improve the hand feel, that less bunching in the hand, which is noticeable to me right off the bat. And then you just improve the balance point of it. It was already great balance. Now it's even better. You didn't have to make it any thinner because it was already a thin blocker. It's a super, super lightweight, but because of it, you have the exact name for it. On this one, I'm going to put you on the spot.
We talked about it last week with the pads. They increased the rebound sort of coefficient off the pads with what they call their rebound boost core, and they've altered the material in the blocker as well. So by their testing, 15% more active rebounds off the blockers. And if you listened to our podcast last week, we had Beck Warm of the Carolina Hurricanes on, and he switched to Bauer just over the past offseason, and he couldn't believe how hot the rebounds come off the blocker. Guess what? They're actually hotter now.
Great for your control, great for putting the puck out of play, great for putting the puck where you want it to go, as opposed to just deflecting and getting it lost.
Like for us beer leaguers, that jackass that won't leave you alone and keeps chirping you. His buddy takes a shot from the point, little steer, you got him.
Well, yeah, yes, we'll go with that. Custom features. So something a little bit exciting.
Kids, don't try that at home.
Yeah, please don't. Don't do what Johnny Don't does. So there's an additional option here that we haven't seen from Bauer, but something that's been available in the pro category for quite a long time. So this is something that you specifically have to ask us about, being us, myself. There's a two-piece option. So if anybody remembers the old 1X blocker, this is now something that is available at the custom level. It's a pro custom option. So they're a higher end custom out of their 2 options.
It's an option you might not see on their customizer, but you can get, because that's the beauty. The customizer is launched, folks. Even though these aren't at retail, the customizer is launched. And that means you can order your custom set from Cam, including this option. So make sure you contact him. Keep going.
So why you would want that? If you ever did have a 1X blocker,
A lot of guys loved them.
exactly. A lot of it was just, again, about the feel, the balance point, and the centered hand position in particular. Something that is available. Ask me about it. We can figure out how to get one into your hand.
Any other custom options that we should know about or think about? I like the molded foam on the back of the cuff.
Removable thumb pillow. Again, just an additional connectivity feel for the blocker itself. Personally, I like it just because it cleans up some of the void space in the blocker, but yours to choose for sure. So
now, not a removable thumb pillow in terms of I can pull this out of a stock one, but removable in terms of you can choose whether you order it or not.
custom option. Exactly.
The other thing we talked about it, we saw it on ultrasonic as well. You've got the elastics on both sides of the cuff, so sort of maintain that connected feel and still able to really turn it over quite easily out of the box and have that rotation. And like we said, steer those pucks. Okay, maybe not at the guy at Beer League who's been chirping you. I apologize. That was a little over the top. I haven't had enough coffee this morning. Cam has, however, and we're going to let him get back to making pretend saves. It's what he does all day here at the hockey shop before it opens at least, and he gets busy with the customers. But if you're looking for the Bauer Hyperlite, if you're looking to get custom options, if you're looking to order yours and maybe have it in your hands before it's even on the shelves here at the hockey shop Source for Sports, make sure you give Cam a call. He's actually already got a custom fitting coming in today for the Bauer Hyperlite. Contact him. How do they get a hold of you, Cam, if they want to get a custom fit?
604-589-8299.
And of course, that's why we come to the hockey shop here. That's why you check them out at thehockeyshop.com and give them a call if you have any questions, because they're going to be able to walk you through all these options. You don't need to come into the store to get a fitting. Cam's dealt with a lot of things online over the years, and he knows how to handle it. So the customizer's live, design your set, and then when it's time to order it, make sure you contact Cam at the hockey shop. You already got the local number. Now we need to see if we can remember the 1-800.
1-800-567-7790.
All right, so that'll do it for now for the Bauer Hyperlite line. Lots more coming. Before we go, quick thank you, Goalie Gear Nerd, with the mask. I am very stylish today and also safe. So shout out for the Jerry Cheevers mask. I love it. Cam, we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you soon.
It's the best part of walking into the hockey shop. The hockeyshop.com source for sports Surrey is just picking out those. Cam doing all that. He's excited about the new gear. But Woody, you talk about it all the time. Just being able to walk over and try on the Hyperlite trapper or glove, and it's the coolest thing.
Yeah, and I think that he was making imaginary saves throughout that segment at the beginning, at the end. Thought he was going to catch me with a little blocker pop at one point. I was thinking of just like ending the segment by feeding him a few blocker shots over the top rope, but that with that new rebound boost core they've got, and the stiffness of that Bauer blocker, and we talked about how actively pucks sort of rocket off that thing. I kind of had visions of doing some damage, and Cam struggles at the best of times, so I decided to hold off and not cause any more problems with his processing. We've seen him try and remember that 1-800 number. Yes. It's painful, right? It's painful. Yeah. Siri, not Surrey, has had to correct him so many times. I just figured that the combination of that stiff blocker and even with a soft right hand like mine, we might have had problems. So we laid off.
And you guys did do a great job of talking about the changes, because when you look at one blocker line to the next year, we don't see massive advancements. Generally, it's one of the ones where you have to really look into. But you ever, and Instagram is the source of my inspiration for this comment. You look back at a hockey card from 1989 or 1991, like blockers were huge, like massive.
Well, gloves too, right? Like for all the obsessing over how much smaller goalies used to be back then. And sure, the pads, I mean, although some of them, they were like 14 inches wide, they weren't as tall and they didn't butterfly. But like, I remember John Davidson used to have this line, like some of the catcher's gloves, like they were like fishing nets, and the blockers were as big as the freaking pads are now. They were just huge.
I know a couple of ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
It's
hey,
a
like they
lot of
probably
fun.
were heavy too. So you had to have real strength to just move those things around. I'd probably just get my arms would be tired in those things. I'm used to the latest and the greatest, the lightest and the brightest, all the new stuff that weighs nothing.
A couple of generations down the road, when they send us the tweaks and the updates on Sensorina VR and Sensorina system, where you're going through and you're playing goal and you're watching those shots come at you, it has to be whether you can put on the '80s goalie gear and be able to look at yourself as a goaltender in the 1980s. I mean, that's way down the road. That's asking a lot, but that would be kind of a cool thing to do.
Kick saves and
Kick save, yeah.
puck save. Well, the tough part there, Darren, is you'd have to sort of develop a sensor that punches you in the ribs every time you actually take one off a felt chest protector, right? Like you'd actually have to, be like the old like shockwave system to let you know that, yeah, you're playing in old gear and it hurts when you get hit. So I don't know that I want that, but it'd be fun to sort of see. We'd put Hutch in. Hutch would have to do that.
Yes. I watched last night, somebody took a 60-foot shot. It was just a sifter that came in, but nobody in front. And the goaltender, I won't name the goaltender, but trapped it against his chest with his glove, like caught it. It hit his chest and he just trapped it. And I'm holding my glove to my chest. There's no way in '80s, no way that puck gets that. You're doing everything you can to catch it before you didn't want it to touch your chest protector. Now it's like, I'll just trap it here.
Well,
why catch it?
I mean, and not to dig too deep into this because we've had this discussion before, but that right there is the biggest factor and the root of the changes Francois Allaire talked about it, right? Like
right
now all of a sudden we can put our torso behind the puck on purpose and have this massive, the biggest part of our body as a save mechanism instead of trying to move it out of the way and catch everything in this tiny little webbing of a glove or the face of a blocker because it hurts so darn much if you did take it off the torso.
We'll go back to the early 90s with our feature interview this week, brought to you by Sensorina VR, and they continue to get it done and just knock it out of the park in the world of virtual reality and the training of goaltenders.
Yeah, and we're going to talk to Éric Fichaud, and it's funny because he's a guy that we just talked about that transition between eras. One of my favorite parts of this interview that Hutch did with Éric is sort of how he got caught in between both worlds, kind of coming up as a guy who didn't have a goalie coach, even in the National Hockey League, and then going to other teams where they did and seeing the difference and how much further ahead a guy like José Theodore was when he arrived in Montreal because he had Rolly Melanson there. And he talked about some of the things that he would do differently in this interview, like training, and he talked about mental training. And I think that's a part of Sensorina. When I listen to this interview, I think Éric Fichaud would probably really have appreciated having something like Sensorina during his career, because it's not just about being able to put yourself in a real goaltending environment and manage things like box control and work your hands and make actual saves without actually hitting the ice. It's about training your brain. And that's a part of Sensorina that I think's been overlooked because it's cool to see all the images in the video of guys making saves, but there are also real immersive, like in that world, 3D tracking objects, multiple object tracking drills, visual drills, eye drills, brain training exercises where you're, trying to read numbers and sequence things, but while looking around a screen, not just, looking at dots, like looking around a player who's trying to screen you and these different numbers pop up, just like we used to put different numbers on a ball and try and call them out. So taking brain training and putting it in this virtual world in a way that feels like also part of a more goaltending style environment. Those are just one of the things that Sensorina does. And I think it's a part that maybe gets overlooked sometimes because it's all included in it. You don't have to go out and buy other brain training tools and exercises. It's all part of this package with Sensorina. And as you listen to this interview with Éric Fichaud, I think there's probably elements of that he would have liked having when he started playing goal.
Check it out because it is one of the best investments that you can make in your own game. Sensorina VR and the world of virtual reality that is tailor-made. It's not just taking something that has some benefits to goaltending. It's designed for goaltending. And it is a sponsor for our feature interview this week, Éric Fichaud, who broke into the world of professional goaltending off a star-studded junior career in Chicoutimi. And he was just right in the middle of an incredible era for Quebec goaltenders, and just not the golden era, but it was sort of the fall of that first generation coming off of Patrick Waugh, and had just spawned some fabulous athletes and fabulous stories. Éric Fichaud, a first-round draft choice, now does the television work and the teeth and hair side of it with TVA Sports. He's fabulous to listen to, and he has some really unique perspectives from spending time in the American Hockey League to goalie coaching to who is your goalie coach sometimes. And he spans a couple of different time frames in that. It's our feature interview presented by Sense Arena VR. Here's Éric Fichaud with David Hutchison.
Welcome, Éric Fichaud. Éric is currently an analyst on TVA Sports, which is a French-language TV broadcaster in Montreal, covering games all around the National Hockey League. More importantly, as so many broadcasters are, Éric is a goaltender. He was selected 16th overall in the 94 NHL draft and had a decade-long pro career that included stops on Long Island, Edmonton very briefly before moving on to Nashville, and seasons in Carolina, and finally home in Montreal. So, Éric, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, David. Thank you.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you just to get rolling, and I think you already answered off top, was, do you still play?
You know what? I once I retired from hockey, I did play for maybe 5-6 years in a beer league with a bunch of guys from my area. Actually, there's a lot of ex-NHLers playing. A guy like Éric Desjardins, Steph Matteau, Donald Odette, and I was even playing with Rich Perron. Remember Rich Perron? I played a few years in the NHL. He was the other goalie, so it's kind of a rare thing playing the beer league and having two guys that play in the NHL as goalies, because usually it's always the hardest position to find guys. So we had a lot of fun, but I haven't put the equipment for 5 years now.
Well, and that was my next question going to be, did you do it as a goaltender? Because so many guys don't want to put the pads on again, but maybe want to lace them up as a player and score some goals.
I wish I could have, but the league was way too good for me. So, I could probably play with like real beer league players, but guys that play in the show, no way. I mean, I couldn't follow with those guys. So I decided to stay in goal just for, at least because the league was good enough. We had some good shots, and it wasn't too bad for a beer league. It wasn't too much of 2-on-1s and 2-on-0 and breakaways all the time. It wasn't that bad.
Well, it's nice to know you had a beer league experience like the rest of us. So, maybe it wasn't quality-wise, but it sounds like it was on the ice in some ways. But look, let's go back to the beginning. So you grew up in Anjou, which is a suburb of Montreal. It's in that northeast corner of the island of Montreal, where it really was a hotbed for goaltenders, like your neighborhood. Probably more NHL goalies per square kilometer in northeast Montreal than anywhere else on the planet. Isn't that true at the time?
Yeah, you're right. Guys before me, obviously, Stéphane Fichette is from Anjou. Félix Potvin was from that area also. Marty Brodeur was from Saint-Léonard, which is right next to it.
A 9-iron away.
Exactly. So there's some guys, a lot of good goalies came from that area. Obviously, growing up, the guy I was trying to imitate was Patrick Waugh, like a lot of young French Quebecer goalies in that time. I mean, he was everyone's idol. So growing up, everyone wanted to be Patrick Waugh. As I got older, I had the chance to meet Stéphane Fichette, that was coming to hockey school where I was attending, and I became kind of friend with him, and he was kind of my mentor when I was around 14, 15 years old, until I got to junior, and because I was drafted by Chicoutimi, Saguenay, and the guy before me was Félix Potvin, and so I start to. I remember trying to imitate Felix, his equipment, the way he was, his style, the way he was playing, and so I had a few guys that I look up to when I was growing up.
I noticed that you'd come after Felix, and then just doing a little bit of background research, somebody put a photo up of, and we'll get to your draft and so on a little bit later, but somebody put a photo up of you in a Leafs jersey. And I thought, no, that guy made a mistake. That's a picture of Podfan. But there was a lot of similarities between the two of you.
Well, I guess when I first got to Chicoutimi, all I could hear was, "Oh, Podvin did this or he did that," and then he had so much success in Chicoutimi before me. So when I got there, obviously I tried to mold my game around around him, the way he was playing. His even the way he was taping his stick with the black tape, and I remember trying to do the same thing and trying to just fix my pads the same way as he did. And he was a guy that I was trying to imitate. So maybe that's one of the reasons. If you look at hockey cards during that time, I kind of look like him. I mean, just a picture wise, not the whole game, but yeah. And I think as you get older, you find your own style of playing. You start to have your own ways to play the game. But around 18, 19, obviously, I was trying to kind of be him. But it changed a little bit after that.
Probably got tiring hearing Felix this, Felix that when you were in junior. So you just went out and one-upped them by winning the Memorial Cup and then getting drafted in the first round. So good job dealing with that pressure.
Well, thanks. The fact that I got drafted by Toronto,
yes,
that's where Felix was. That didn't help my cause for that. But he was so nice to me my first training camp. I mean, I had a hard time speaking English when I got to Toronto. So being the first pick, having the pressure of being the first pick, plus dealing with the whole media thing wasn't easy for an 18-year-old kid.
It's incredible.
But he was good to me, and I had a good camp. I had a lot of fun. It went really fast. From winning the Quebec Cup, going to the Memorial Cup, being drafted. Next thing you know, you're in the room with Potvin, Don Gilmore, all the big guns. So it was a good moment for me. But again, it happened so fast. It takes a little time to adjust.
What's it like when you grow up in Montreal and you're drafted by the dreaded Toronto Maple Leafs?
You know what? I think just being drafted in the NHL, it didn't matter where it was. I mean,
Okay.
I was so nervous. I don't even remember I don't remember Gary Bettman calling my name and walking to the stage to put the jersey on and meeting going to the Toronto Maple Leafs table with Pat Burns and all the Leafs staffs. I mean, it happened so fast. All I remember was hugging my parents, and next thing you know, I'm behind a microphone doing a press conference, trying to answer questions, and so it was kind of a surreal moment for me. I didn't think about, well, they have this guy or they have that guy. It's just a moment you try to enjoy. And after my training camp, that was all different. Now you got the taste of the NHL. You kind of expect, more what to expect from an NHL level of play. But before that, honestly, it was just it was more of a dream than the real thing.
Must have been an incredible dream. Did you have a feeling for who might pick you? Had some teams expressed interest?
You know what? The worst thing for drafts for players that are going to be drafted is the list. The famous list of the best prospects, and everyone tells you not to look at the list. But you see your name, you see a number next to your name, and you always expect you're going to be drafted around that time. I remember meeting Washington twice. Actually, I flew to Washington to meet David Poile and the staff, and I know they liked me, and I think my memory is correct. They had 2 drafts during that draft, and they draft other players, so there's so many things that can happen that I never talked to the Leafs, to be honest with you. So there's only few teams that I didn't talk before the draft. Montreal Canadiens was one of them. The Leafs were the second team that I didn't talk to. So sometimes you go in a meeting, you come back after, and you have a good feeling, and you're like, oh, I think they like me, but they have so many people on their list. It's hard to tell. I think you just want to enjoy the moment and not think about your you're ranked too much, but it's a hard thing to do, obviously.
Oh, of course it is. Right from youth kids getting drafted into junior right up to the NHL. I'm
Yeah.
100% sure. Okay, so you brought up Felix, so I just have to ask you a couple of questions because I've got an old set of Felix Potvin pads sitting in the garage, my very favorite ones ever. What was your favorite setup for yourself? Do you have a set of gear that you really remember and being proud of?
You know what? When my whole I would say minor hockey until probably junior, I was playing with Vaughn. So I like that equipment. As I turned pro, for some reason, I started playing with Coho, and obviously Felix was playing also with Coho. So I kind of get used to those pads and that kind of style. And it was during the time that Marty Brodeur was playing with, I believe, it was Heaton,
Right.
and I think it was more of a strategic thing because Brodeur was in New Jersey and I was in Long Island. They didn't want two guys having the same brand, or so I was the Coho. I had the Coho gear. I think my first 2 years, they were probably my best set of equipment. But when I look back, I look so small compared to those guys now. I mean, I'm a smaller guy, but even equipment wise, it was before the rules and everything. I could have cheated way more than I did. I tell you that.
Yeah. And they were a lot wider too. But the upper body's 100% different.
My upper body was way bigger back then, obviously, than goalies that you see now. But my pants were small. I mean, if I could go back, I would change that right away. You know what? I didn't put a lot of thought in my equipment, and that probably was my mistake. For some reason, I just, I was happy with what I had. But I know other guys, they work on their equipment, they work on their pads and pants, and there's a lot of things. If I could go back in time now, knowing what I know, I would change a lot of things about my equipment. First of all, my pants would be twice as the size that I had. So right there, you have I was 5'11", 165 pounds, 70 pounds. So, I mean, can you imagine playing the NHL now with that size? That would be impossible, I think.
Saros and you, I guess, eh?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's not too many guys left around that size. I mean, you got a guy like Yaroslav Alak doing it. I have so much respect for the younger guys because the game changed, the style evolved, and the style evolved around big guys. So everything you see now, you got to be 6'3" to be able to play that style.
I think we're actually starting to see some evidence, I think, with some of the teams that we're talking to, looking at data. I think there's going to be more of an acceptance of guys that are a little bit smaller. And you and I were talking earlier before we hopped on here about how the game has evolved. So what have you seen over your career as a broadcaster now? You've been obviously following the game much more closely than most people do. What have you seen as an evolution in the goaltender's game over the last, let's say, decade?
You know what? There's always a tendency, a new technique, a new approach. And when I played, I'm sure you remember that the paddle down was the big thing. Actually, Philippe Potvin was doing it. Curtis Joseph was doing it. Ed Belfort, they were big on the paddle down because guys were doing the wraparounds a lot during that era. And they were trying to beat guys in their feet, and having the paddle down, you would cover a lot of, the lower part of the net. As the years went by, that's what I see in hockey is the players adjust the game. If the goalie is going to go paddle down, they're going to try to get a different angle to go high. So that's the first part of the. I noticed, but you can go back 20 years now. But if you look 10 years, the last 10 years, what you see now is, I think for so many years the goalie's been having a hard time to play the game in dead angles. Getting beat by those angle shots. And towards the end of my years as a pro, Rolly Melanson was my goalie coach in Montreal, and I remember him trying to teach us the VH, trying to get the VH to be able to stop those kind of angle shots from down low. And now, obviously, goalies don't use the VH anymore as much. It's more the reverse VH. And what like the same thing is happening now that happened 20 years ago. Players are starting to adjust. So 20 years ago, because of the paddle down, what happened is forwards, instead of doing the wraparound, they would go a little further, try to get that angle and go high. But now what you see is if the guy goes down the wing, he's going to go high and hard. If he's got no other plays, he's not going to go low. He's going to go high. And sometimes goalies get beat, even big guys. Even if you're 6'4", there's always that hole. And guys are so good now, they'll get that spot. So I think it's a cycle. Goalies find something new to try. It works for a while. And after player adjust their game, and now you can see the forwards are starting to catch the goalies off guard because it's been overused. That's a problem. It's a good technique, but it's been overused, I think, the last few years.
Yeah, interesting point you brought up there, because we often have these discussions of, reverse VH versus the old timers. They say, just stand up on your post and you'll stop everything. But really, there was a time when we learned that just standing on the post didn't work. And I hadn't really thought about that connection between paddle down as being the solution. And so for everybody who's seen paddle down out there, let's remember that there was a time standing on your post didn't work. And I think it was Kelly Rudy told us he may have been the first guy to actually use the paddle down technique.
Yeah, well, I know I liked it because, the guys were, the whole game was around the net and trying to catch goalie in their feet, especially guys that would stand up on wraparounds, which is almost impossible if you think about it. But at one point, that's what they were doing. But yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, there's always good technique. If you overuse it, people's gonna know. Now with videos and you analyze the goalie and even the reverse VH. I mean, it's good. I understand why they use it. It's good if it's a dead angle shot. Like, I mean, it has to be like really in the corner, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
Some guys are using it even if they could just play the normal butterfly, I think. But being on your feet, I mean, the longer you can stay on your feet, the better it is. I like the mix of both. I mean, if you can use that technique, but also be on your feet to be able to push in a pass, I think now in Montreal, Price, I think we might see Carey Price being on his feet a little bit more, maybe with the change of goalie coaches and maybe the whole mentality around it. I mean, I'm looking forward to see how Sean Burke is going to bring something new to his game.
Yeah, as are we, and we published a piece on that got referenced on Hockey Night this weekend. But you're right there. You're in Montreal. You're talking to people in Montreal. So what do you expect to change over the next little while with Carey and Sean and Alan as well?
Well, I actually played a little bit with Sean Burke in I think it was '97 Team Canada. I was the third goalie behind. He was the number one, obviously. I remember Rick Tabaracci. He was the backup. Right. And it would 3 different styles, and I learned a lot from Berkey. Obviously, he was a big guy. Well, even then, obviously, he was one of the biggest goalie. Now they all the same size almost, but and he was a guy that would play his game a little deeper. And I think that's what we're going to see. We might see Price. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Henrik Lundqvist, but he's going to be a little, maybe like a feet a little behind, so it might help him to be able to get those side to side passes and the fact that Price is 6'3", 230 pounds, he's a big guy, so man. He can afford no, he's not a small guy, and he's got good feet. I think one of the main reasons you see goalies playing deep is a lot of times they don't have good feet. I think Lundqvist, one of the reasons he did that, I don't think he's that good of a skater compared to Carey Price. Price has great feet. He's quick on his feet, so he was able to play all those years, even if he was a little further up. But with Burke, I think they're going to try to bring him a little bit back, so you won't have to move as much to get to push in a pass, or so maybe that's going to help him to be on his feet a little bit more.
One of the things that I enjoy about what you're doing is that you're covering games all around the league. There's so many broadcasters are sort of by necessity forced into working with one of the divisions, but the model at TVA has you covering games all around the league. So, what have you seen in the goaltenders this year? Maybe a couple of guys that wouldn't stand out to those of us who are following, one division in particular. Who are some sort of new stories to you this year, or maybe sleeper goaltenders who are having performances that maybe people who are focused on one part of the league wouldn't be noticing?
Well, I've been doing a lot of games in Canada. Obviously, we focus a lot of Canadian teams. There have been some great matchup, and a guy that I saw a little bit last year, even more during the bubble, was Thatcher Demko. And when obviously, being where you are right now, I mean, you have the chance to see him a lot, and for a big guy to be able to move that well, it's impressive. And I think he's got a potential to be. I think he's got another gear to his game. And once he reaches that gear, if he can have some consistency, he's going to be a solid guy for a long time in this league. That's what I think. Last year during playoff, I think it was against Vegas, he was just unreal. I mean, you can see the potential. Yeah. And I think that might be one of the reasons that when they signed Olby, they were willing to give him 2 years because they figure maybe in 2 years, Demko's going to reach the level that we think he might get. And I still believe he's going to get that to that level. I don't know him personally. I mean, I never met him, but just his game, he's got a good technique. I like goalies that I don't like robots. I like goalies that have a good technique, but I mean, they're going to react to the game a little bit.
It's only the foundation.
Sometimes the young guys, sometimes young goalies, they'll just go in, like butterfly, boom. They don't move much. It can be good sometimes, but you need some. I think a mix of both is a good thing for goalies now.
Yeah, ironically, as we're talking about the RVH maybe being overused, there's Thatcher Demko's a guy who uses it probably more than anybody else.
He does, but
success.
he's six what, 6'6"?
Not quite that big, but he's drilled that technique too. He just works so hard at it and uses it so well. Okay, so back to Montreal, because and let's just tie this to your career, because you spent a season in Nashville, their very first season in the league. What's it like going to an expansion team in their first season? What's Nashville like? What was the experience as a player? Tell us about that.
Well, in your intro, you were saying I was in Edmonton just for a little while, and I was there for
paper,
1 month, I think. Yeah, exactly.
So you actually got there.
I got there. I made a training camp. I don't think Van Sater was a big fan of me. So after towards the end of the camp, I remember Ron Lowe, who was the coach at that time. We had 2 back-to-back games. I think it was towards the end of the training camp. So there must have been 3 or 4 exhibition games left. So he told me, he goes, Bobby Essenza was with me at that time. He said, Bob's going to play that tonight and you're going to play tomorrow. So I'm like, no problem. So I finished the practice. After practice, someone tells me, Ron wants to see you in his office. All right. I just spoke to him like an hour ago. So I get to his office and you're like, well, Fish, I don't know what to tell you. We just trade you to Nashville, just like that. So I'm like, all right. So I went to Nashville. For me, going to Nashville in my head was like, okay, it's my second chance. I just came from a shoulder surgery in New York, and it was like a new start for me. So I knew I had to beat. Was Mike Dunham was the goalie with me. Mm-hmm. He came from Jersey. He was Marty Brothers' backup, so he didn't have the chance to play a lot because he was behind one of the best of all time. So when I got to Nashville, you know what? It was a good experience because we're being new in the city. It was the first year of the team. The people were looking forward to have a hockey team in Nashville. So the whole thing with the country music, that was fine. For me personally, as a goalie, they told me right up the start, they said, listen, we're going to start with Mike Dunham. And as long as he played good, he's going to be the number 1 guy and you'll get your chance eventually. The thing is, that was probably the best year of Mike Dunham's career. He was unbelievable. So I had to wait. And at one point, I believe he got hurt. I think it was against the Rangers. So I got in, played a few games. I got hurt also. So we both hurt. So what happened next? Well, there's someone named Thomas Vokum that was playing the minor. And, when you say the rest is history, well, that's pretty much what happened. Vokum started to play really well. And by the time the year finished, he was almost number 1 guy. So I knew my time in Nashville was over. So hockey-wise, it wasn't that good of a moment for me, even if the city was fine, everything. So they traded me. I went from Nashville to the Hurricanes, and I actually enjoyed my time with the Hurricanes. We had a good bunch of guys. The number one guy was Arthur Irby.
Right.
Great guy, great character, hardest working. I wouldn't say goalie, I would say player I've ever been with. He was a machine on and off the ice, and I didn't have a goalie coach. I remember Steve Weeks was the goalie coach, but he was only there like a week, a month. So it was still during a time where goalie coaches were not a big part of teams. So my goalie coach was Irby pretty much, and he
really?
has his own thing going. Yeah, well, he was the only guy that I could work with because nobody else was with us on the ice every day. But it was a good experience for me because just watching a guy like that work so hard, he could be on the ice for 3 hours every day. I never seen anything like this. So it helped me for my my work habit. But I didn't play a lot because he was playing almost every game. But I had some good time in Carolina. And by the end of the year, they put me on waivers, and that's how I ended up with Montreal. So I've been all over.
So wow, so many threads to pull on there, from goalie coaches to goalie partners. Let's go to expansion though. You put your broadcaster hat on now. Who do you think you see playing net for Seattle a year from now?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm wondering if happened with Marc-Andre Fleury. If is Vegas going to keep him, they have to protect one guy. The fact that Leonard is signed for a few years. I mean, if you look what Fleury did in Vegas, I mean the first year that he got to Vegas, not only did he play like his good years in Pittsburgh, but he brought the team to final, almost won the cup. So I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Seattle try like a guy with a veteran like that instead. They might go with a young guy also, but having a veteran like Fleury, who's like the best teammate you can find, is a great goalie still, having a great season. I don't know. That's a name that I've been seeing that a lot on the news. Maybe Fleury would be a good addition to Seattle.
And your local team there in Montreal might have a little bit of a problem with the draft because you've got Carey, you got Jake Allen playing very well as well. Maybe potentially one of the best tandems in the league, as well as Vegas and the island, a few other places. But what do you think's going to happen there in Montreal?
Well, I think I would say maybe the last 7 years, one of the problem always been the backup goalies with Price. I mean, they were looking for a guy that would be able to win games for them. They would be able to rest Price when he needed to, because the problem we've been having in Montreal, and I think it's the same problem they have in Toronto, is there's never a good time to put the backup, because sometimes it's back-to-back games and you need that win, and more you wait to play the backup, the harder it's going to get, because towards the end of the year, you need those wins. So now you got to play your number one even more. The same thing happened in Toronto. So this year, the difference is Jake Allen's been good since day one, even better than Price sometimes. Mm-hmm. And having a good backup, it's a luxury now, because the time that Price needed to find his game back, well, at least you had a guy that could win some games for Montreal. So Allen's been even better than I thought he would be. Some guys they're depending of their role. A guy like Jake Allen, I mean, he was a number one for some years in St. Louis. But if you look at the way they've been using him now, maybe because he's older and he's at a different point of his career, but I think it's a good setup for him, being like a number two guy that is able to play maybe 30 games in a normal season. But it's a good addition for Montreal, and a backup goalie. People sometimes they'll talk about backup like they're nothing, but if you don't have a good backup goalie, you'll miss playoffs, because if your backup gets you, 12 wins, that's 24 points. Without those points, you're not in playoffs.
Yeah. That's massive. And of
And
course, your starter's not going to play as well either.
exactly. The thing is happening in Toronto. Well, right now Anderson is hurt, but even before this year, we always hear, "Well, Anderson's been playing way too much game. They give too many shots." But one of the reasons he was playing too many game is the backup couldn't do his job. Now with Campbell, seems to be finding his way in Toronto. Maybe they eventually they'll be able to rest Anderson a little bit more. So once the end of the season and the playoff starts, you'll be able to go and play some high quality hockey.
And like any big market, that goes from now we have a good backup to now we have a goalie controversy.
Yeah, well, it's always the same thing. We had it in Montreal with Price and Halak, and it's funny though in Boston. I'm sure sometimes if Tuukka Rask having a really hard time and Halak is playing well, I mean they'll be like, okay, who's the number one guy? But for the most part, they all know Halak is the backup. He's one of the best in the league, and yeah. So I think it's the perfect setup they have it in Boston.
So as we went through your career, you sort of wrapped up where it all began as a youngster in Montreal, and you got that opportunity to pull on the Habs jersey. Can you describe what it's like to pull that jersey on and step onto the ice for the first time, even though you'd already been in the league for a while? Yeah. You got to feel like a kid again.
Yeah, I did. Even if it was, it was during a time where I was trying to get back to, being a NHL goalie, because I've been, battling injuries, going, minor up and down. And so the time in Montreal for me was maybe a little different. I mean, I appreciate the fact that, I was in Montreal playing for the Canadiens, the team I was watching growing up. But for me personally, I was trying to get back in the game, trying to find the level of play that I wanted to, which I was so far away from that. And a funny story talking about the goalie stuff. When I got to Montreal, when I find out, Paul Maurice asked me to come to his office, and he said, "Going home, kid." I'm like, "What do you mean I'm going home?" He goes, "Montreal just pick you up on waivers, so you're going to Montreal." I called my dad and I said, "Dad, I'm gonna come with the Canadiens." So obviously we were happy in the whole thing. But my first practice, when I got to the ice with Josie Theodore, which is a guy that I've known my whole life, Jeff Hackett was there also, and Rolly Melanson was there. So when I got on the ice with those guys, and we're doing some drills and 2-on-1 drills and trying to work some, technical stuff. And this is exactly where I realized how far behind I was compared to those guys. Oh, it was like, and the fact that, Rolly was there every day with those guys on the ice, and I didn't have a goalie coach for pretty much, the whole time I was playing pro. And I was like, wow, I'm so far behind. Just the way they were moving their legs, and, the whole, getting up on the right leg and stuff like that. So I was like, even Theo, I was like, wow, you're in different level now. Me and him, we're even junior, we're always pretty much the same level of play. I might have made the NHL a little bit before him, but that was like 4 years after, and he was like way ahead, like not even close. And it kind of hurt me. I was like, I got some work to do if I want to get back to that game, because I'm way behind with all the technical stuff. And Rolly helped me. Unfortunately, I was older, and the other guys were so far ahead. I was never able to get back to the level that I wanted to.
It's amazing how circumstances can change things for everybody, and what opportunities and what people you have to work with. And so you didn't have many goalie coaches over that pro career. Who were good influences for you as you developed as a goaltender? Who supported you?
When I was in New York, Gilles Gilbert was my goalie coach, and he was such a great yeah, exactly. And he was such a great guy. But unfortunately, it was during a time where goalie coach were not as important as it is now for a lot of teams. And in New York, Gilles was there like maybe a week during the whole month. Sometimes he was there even less. So as much as I liked him, it was hard for me to get some technical stuff, because not only he was from a different era, of goalie technique, but he wasn't there enough for me. And even after that, until I got to the Canadians with Rolly, I didn't have a guy with me on every day on the ice. So I was pretty much trying to survive out there. Being a small goalie, I was fast, but I was out of control. I was doing things that I thought I could do. Like I didn't have anyone to do some videos with me and teach me the real technique. And it's amazing the difference it could have made. And once I got to Montreal, well, I was already like a minor guy now, and you're like if you play a few years in a minor, the window's pretty much shut down. So it's shut tight. It's like, okay, he's a minor guy. You might get the call once in a while if they need a goalie, like an emergency third goalie, but it's hard to get back in a game once you leave it.
It really is, and that window is so short, especially for a Canadian goaltender. I think coming out of junior when you're so young, and then if you don't earn that spot quickly, and yet we see the window seems to be a little bit longer for Europeans these days. You can play a little pro over there, come over here 23, 24, and still get that opportunity. Why do you think the Canadians and the Americans as well don't get that same opportunity as they're a little older?
Well, I think you made a good point. The fact that they have that option to play in Europe and play some really good league, and maybe it's better to come in the league a little older, and maybe it's better if you wait until you're 24, but you might play until you're 35 or something, and you might play at 12 years or even more, and you're more mature. You had time to work on your game. When I played, I was 20 years old. I mean, I was way too young. I should have stayed a minor at least a full year, maybe 2 years. It would have been good for me. Playing a lot of games. That's the hardest part, I think, for any young goalies. You used to play a lot of games. Once you get to the NHL level, depending which team you're playing with, you might only see 20-something games your first year. So you went from playing 60 games a year, or maybe less now. Guys don't play as much, but 50 games a year, playing 20-something games. And I think the guy that's been playing the minor 50 games every year, compared to the guy that's been playing 15 or maybe 20 games in the NHL, I guarantee you, in a few years, he's going to be way ahead of the guy in the NHL, even if he wasn't a minor, because there's nothing better than playing for your development, I think. So it's better to wait for a guy like Montreal right now. They have a good prospect, Caden Primo. So it's better for him to play 50 games in Laval than play behind Price 12 games a year, even if it's NHL games, I think.
100%. And I think we've talked to lots of people that sort of have models that show you need X number of games at whatever level before you're ready to make that jump, especially because goaltending is really a game of learning to read patterns, isn't it? It's not just technique.
Yeah. And you know what? Well, it happened to me. If you don't play for a long time, when I was with the Hurricane, I think I only played 9 games or something. And you get those long stretch of not playing, and you're sitting on the bench, and something happened, like a play, and you're like, how would I play? How would I try to stop a puck on different plays? And you start questioning yourself about, would I stay up? And you think way too much about how you would stop a puck in different situations, because you're not doing it, you're only watching it. So practice is a good thing, but you need games. Games is a different world. You need to see those situations, I think, to improve. And any young goalies that are not playing, I think it's a bad thing. Make sure the guy plays a lot of games. Even if you wait 2 or 3 years to give him the call to play in the NHL, once you start playing, if you look at a guy like Price, the difference with Carey Price, even if he was young when he came with the Montreal Canadiens, he still played a lot of games as a young age. Mm-hmm. So that's a different story. But obviously his level of talent was way above anybody else. But you got to be careful with young goalies. Just look at what's going on right now with Carter Hart in Philly. It's easy to lose confidence, and it's hard to find it back.
Yeah, sure is. And no doubt for you, even tougher when you didn't have a goalie coach in many of those places to help you with it. You alluded to not having a goal. I mean, you didn't allude to. You told us you didn't have a goalie coach in most of those places. You talked a little bit about things you might have done differently with gear. Just to finish up here, as you look back on your career, what would you tell a young Éric Fichaud to help him along, or a young child, a young goaltender you work with today? What do you wish you knew then that you know today?
I think learning to be a professional. When I look back, I mean, when I first started, you try different things. You think that you know what to do, but looking back, and if I compare my first few years in the NHL to my last few years, the amount of work that I would have worked way harder as a young goalie when I first came in. You kind of cocky. You had some good years in junior. You think it's going to be easy. I had a good start in the AHL. I went to the All-Star game. Everything was going perfectly. You had no challenges. It was just play. They say ignorance is bliss, which is true.
Yeah.
You don't know what to expect, so you play against like superstars. You think it's going to be easy, but if I could go back, I would have worked on my game way more in practice. I would have worked way more in the gym. That's the biggest difference. Obviously, everything evolves, and the difference from my first few years to the last of my years playing was, the whole being in good shape was important for goalies. When I first started, it was kind of a joke. Goalies are out of shape and they just, they use their skills. But towards the end, it wasn't the same. Goalies were in good shape and they were taking care of themselves. And so that would be something that I would change. I would try to get stronger. I would work on technical stuff. I know I didn't have a goalie coach, but still, I mean, I could have done something different for sure in the game, and I'm sure it would have helped me along the way.
I love that explanation because what you're saying is something we hear from so many people. That importance of learning to be a pro,
Mm-hmm.
and yet it's hard for a lot of people to put into words what it means to be a pro, because junior hockey is pretty high level these days. It's pretty professional in terms of the approach that these kids take, and yet they still get into the NHL and they say, no, there's a different level, isn't there?
Oh, for sure. And it's funny now because my first camp, I was 18 years old. When I got there, I didn't even know they had some testing to do, like VO2 max. And I remember I almost died on the bike. And they told me that I had the worst VO2 since Grand Fjord. And I kind of realized that wasn't a compliment because Grand Fjord, I didn't have a good VO2 max, they told me. And I had a hard time finishing practice in training camp. I remember sleeping 4 hours in the afternoon just to, be able to be back the next day on the ice. And
Wow.
So, just knowing what it is to be a pro player makes a big difference. I mean, now it's so different. Guys are almost, treating like pro players in junior, which was not the case when I played. But I think the guys now are way more prepared. It's a different world. But if I look my junior and the step from being to the NHL and learning to be a pro and learning to be able to deal with pressure, the pressure that comes in, that's another thing. The mental part of the game, I think now the players work on that way more than when I played. It was like, deal with it and, just go in there and play and have fun. That's the easiest thing to do, have fun. Tell you what, when you lose games after game, it's not fun. And having that pressure, knowing what to do to deal with the pressure, it's a big part of being a good goalie and being consistent, I think.
Absolutely. And well, you got to experience the game at the highest levels, and now you're sharing it with an audience at the highest level. It's a whole different kind of pressure you're dealing with. Éric, I think we could talk probably for 2 or 3 more hours about goaltending, but I promised I wouldn't do that to you today. So thank you so much for taking the time with us. I know all our listeners are going to enjoy this. I know all the young goaltenders and the old goaltenders are going to learn a ton from your experience, and we really appreciate you sharing it with us today.
Well, thanks for having me, David. Anytime, it was a pleasure.
One of those voices that I know, but the young athlete, we'll have to look back and maybe do some Googling on Éric Fichaud, but he's a guy that had some adventures during the course of his career, and another one of those athletes who has transitioned and is really interesting to listen to. You don't get the cliches with Éric Fichaud, and I say that as the ultimate compliment because it's hard to speak without cliches. You do a great job of it, Woody, but it's difficult.
Well, it's because everything I say is made up, so there's no. It's like I'm just pulling it right out of my
No,
posterior.
you do a fantastic job of it, and I sincerely mean that. And Fichaud is of the same brain waves.
Yeah, I loved listening to him. I'm blushing over here, but I loved listening to him, and it made me actually wish that he was on. I mean, let's just say grade 12 was a long time ago, and I don't remember much of the French I learned because I stopped at that point. I'm no longer able to help my kids with their high school French, so I would probably struggle listening to the TVA broadcast, but I kind of wish I could hear him in English or maybe I need to go back to school just so I can listen to him because he was insightful, thoughtful. Like I would love to hear him on a broadcast. It made me excited to hear what one of his broadcasts would be like because you feel like it would be more than just the cliches. And that's why so many goalies make great broadcasters because they see things from the perspective of sort of everything that goes on. And I loved his perspective. And I loved, as I said, the perspective of a guy who was kind of part of that transition right when I was learning about goaltending. And I started learning about it on the modern technical, but he was in that wave kind of right before. And there was that crossover. And he mentioned it like proper leg recovery, things that are it's one of the first things you learn now. But in the 2000s, which I guess this makes me old, like it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, there were NHL goalies that didn't do it. And I remember having these interviews with these guys. They're trying to add the new technique, but they don't want to lose the instinct that got them there. And they're fighting between those two worlds. And we still see it today. Braden Holtby's going through it right now in Vancouver, trying to add, new things technically under Ian Clark without losing the flow and rhythm. And he's caught in between. And there was a whole generation of guys that were, and Éric is a perfect example, that had to sort of straddle those lines and learn as they went. And I thought the way he told that story about showing up in Montreal and Rolling Melanson and like the eye-opening, like, oh my, I'm behind you guys. That was the case for a lot of guys, and credit for him to trying to learn and adapt. And, I guess we're always learning and adapting in this position, but not so much as those guys had to. So I loved hearing it. I loved hearing his take on it.
Where do you think the Arturs Urbe legendary pads are?
They should be.
I wonder.
They should be in the Hall of Fame. He's probably got them at home so he can, add a few pieces or stitch up a hole still, right? Like it's probably a hobby for him, especially if he, as Fichaud said, like 3 hours on the ice working. The PA would have had a fit. Now you can't even go on the ice for 3 hours anymore with the team function. But yeah, so he's probably, if he's trying to keep busy, Arturs is probably still stitching up those white pads, but they should 100% have their own display at the Hockey Hall of Fame because they are legendary.
What about being compared to Grant Fuhr? Like that's a great compliment until you realize it's not a compliment.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too. And that brings us back to, like the game's changed a lot, right? Like but still, we still hear stories about goalies that sort of, they get by on talent at a young age and they get drafted and they've got to learn, how many times have we heard it, Darren, learning to be a pro. Chris Dreger.
Yeah.
Right? Like sort of quote unquote late bloomer, ended up in the East Coast Hockey League just a couple of years ago, learned some hard lessons about being a pro. And now he's, fully established in the National Hockey League. So there's some lessons there that, as much as we take it for granted that kids are learning them at younger ages, and no, we don't want you to be a pro at 8. Thank you very much. But as you get into junior, whether it's a Fichaud or a Chris Dreger, listen to what they're saying on this podcast. Listen to the lessons here, because not everybody's going to get, opportunities to do it again or second opportunities to make, whether it's the first impression or to stick around on a pro team or a junior team. Again, don't start it at 8 years old, but you've got to start developing some of those habits on and off the ice at an earlier age than these guys have maybe been able to get away with.
Yeah, you think about the people that didn't heed that advice or didn't get that advice to begin with and just disappear into our sphere of Wednesday night at 11 or Saturday morning at 7 a.m. where we can get the ice time because they didn't get that opportunity. We know the stories and they're inspirational, but don't become the Wednesday night at 11.
Yeah, the All Roads Lead to Beer League t-shirt that I have. Yeah, no, definitely not. But that was the other part about Eric's interview that I loved. You know, that when he retired, he still played for a few years, 5 years, and actually took some shifts in the old League North American Hockey, which was the toughest fighting league in probably the world back in those days. But he kept playing goal for a while because the level he was playing at was high enough that he couldn't just go out and skate as a forward. So he hasn't played for 5 years, he told us there, but for the first 5 after he retired, he's actually a goalie, and that makes him very rare because most guys, you know, they hang up those pads as soon as they're done. So special breed.
I never got that. I will never get it because I just love the position too much and will play it until I can't get out there anymore. But good on him for doing that. Thanks for Woody for the brilliant conversation and the commentary on that, and David Hutchison for fitting in the time to make Éric Fichaud happen. On our feature interview presented by Sense Arena VR. We have a busy stretch coming up. It's going to be a great one. The trade deadline is right around the corner. Teams are playing at least 4 or 5 games a week if they're not in any type of pause. It's going to be a frantic stretch drive to the Stanley Cup playoffs and some major junior playoffs and American Hockey League as well. And we're going to dive into some of those stories as we continue. But for Kevin Woodley, I'm Darren Millard. Thanks for listening to In Goal Radio, the podcast. We'll chat with you next week as we move our way along in 2021.